Zeroy woke up in a field of grass, the wind gently tilting the blades of grass as it gusted by. He slowly sat up straight, looking down at himself. He was different, not just physically, but his state of existence felt different. His body warped the laws of physics in its own construct. His body, shattered, yet still in complete control of every fragment. His limbs floating, his eyes vacant. Zeroy no longer was bound to the chains of space-time. His existence spread through every possibility, and yet none of them. Time was not something he could run out of anymore. Zeroy was the new pinnacle of existence. The Zephians woke up across this new island. The island had a temperate forest in the southwest, pines in the southeast, mountains in the northeast, and open plains in the northwest. In utter confusion with what happened, the people had no other choice but to begin constructing homes. Across this new island, small colonies developed, housing small populations of the survivors from the past. Suddenly, a group of people ran from the north. They screamed in fear. They were not alone. Zeroy was on the island with them. The people prepared to fight back against Zeroy. It was rumored that he was simply sitting on the edge of the cliff in the north, watching the sun rise and set, analyzing the phases of the moon as they cycle. He must be waiting for the perfect moment to finally exterminate the Zephian race, just as he promised Leroy so long ago. The people gathered their weapons and charged into battle against Zeroy, although it seemed there was not a single soul that believed they could win. But if they were going to become extinct at the wrath of Zeroy, they might as well die fighting for their survival. Eventually, the people passed through the distant plains to reach Zeroy. Just as suspected, he was simply sitting and staring. The first person charged towards him, screaming as tears poured down his face. Zeroy slowly stood up, turning around and instantly killing the man. His body was crushed into the ground by Zeroy's floating fist. He stared at the crater he made in the ground. Slowly yet surely, more and more people charged towards Zeroy, giving their lives towards the impossible odds that they would win the war. But with each and every person that tried to attack Zeroy, they would get brutally killed before even getting remotely close to landing an attack. Every skull crushed, and every body decimated was completely effortless to Zeroy. Nonetheless, the people refused to give up fighting. Person after person, they closed in on Zeroy, only to get killed. It was pointless. Person after person, bodies piled. Meaningless deaths for an impossible cause. Eventually, with their numbers whittling away, they stopped. People stopped charging towards Zeroy. Zeroy looked around him, seeing all the dead that surrounded. He looked towards the group of people in front of him. The group of people stared back. It was completely silent. Zeroy turned and walked back over to the cliff, sitting down and watching the horizon once again. The people would be the ones to make themselves extinct if they continued fighting, so they slowly backed away to return back home. There was no struggle for him anymore. His fighting was meaningless. With nothing to strive for, what would be the point for fighting back? Without a struggle, there is no purpose. "136 long years of expansion. Towns and cities sprouted from the seeds that were the colonies, covering the majority of the southern parts of the island. Civilization grew larger, yet never grew any closer towards Zeroy. Though he never threw the first punch, the fear that he would still lingered in the hearts of the people. A mission was developed for the island's military to investigate Zeroy. The team of soldiers traveled through the northern plains, eventually reaching Zeroy's cliff. They notice he has not moved at all, simply sitting, thinking, and watching the horizon. There was not much else to document, and interacting with Zeroy would never result in anything beneficial. Besides, enough meaningless deaths were already spent for the Zephians throughout their history. "313 years passed by. The knowledge and technologies of the Zephians grew exponentially. The towns turned into cities, as cities turned into megacities. The era of urbanization was upon the Zephians. The knowledge of one such technology was passed down by the Zephian ancestors. This device supposedly was accessed by the ancient Zephians to locate their dimension and describe it, including depictions of the realm and the name given to it. This interdimensional indicator was reinvented. Along with it came another device capable of traveling through dimensions. This concept was never before seen to any of the current Zephians, but used to be a key component of their ancestors' history. The interdimensional indicator was activated. The device read out information of their current dimension. Arono. The dimension's name was Arono. Arono's history dates back indefinitely, even before the Zephians arrived. And all throughout this endless history, Zeroy was there through its entirety as his ascended form. It was true, Zeroy truly existed across all of space and time. Neither of these concepts bound Zeroy in any way. Scientists began to work with information from Zephian history before arriving on Arono. Their conclusion? It all is Zeroy. Zeroy is the zenith of all existence. When he killed the previous god of gods, Daimo, it was all reset. All realms controlled by Daimo were reset entirely to conform to the existence of Zeroy. Zeroy becoming the new god of gods was why Arono and all other dimensions under his control came into existence. Paired with this interdimensional indicator was the device that could save their society from the overarching threat of Zeroy. Though he has proven to be dormant, nothing would be safer than completely abandoning the Arono dimension for another, safer one. However, a dilemma arose with the newfound realization of Zeroy's existence. Even if they could escape to another dimension, they would never escape the ascendancy of Zeroy. Zeroy existed across every dimension, yet also didn't. The concept was hard to grasp, but meant that the people could ultimately never fully escape Zeroy. But this wasn't enough of a reason to not escape Arono. The interdimensional traveling device was powered on, set to a neighboring universe, and activated. But nothing happened. Zeroy entirely erased the power of interdimensional travel, isolating all dimensions he controls from each other. Interdimensional travel has become a concept of the past. Zeroy was trapping them, but why? He has proven that killing the Zephians is not in his favor. Why would he cause this? But maybe this wasn't just about the Zephians. Maybe this wasn't about trapping them, but rather freeing them. Freeing them from falling down the same horrid path Zeroy went down. A path stained with blood and regrets, ultimately originating with interdimensional travel. Zeroy truly did feel remorse. "84 years have passed. Zeroy sits on the cliff, the grass growing around him with time. He doesn't move for years. Silently, the Zephian species passes, as does the extensive history and stories behind them, never to be told to any descendant again. The reason why was unknown to Zeroy, but it seemed as if Zeroy already knew it was coming to them. He lays down to stare off into the ever-changing sky above him. The ruins of Zephian civilization began their descent back into the ground. Vines desperately grab onto the buildings, pulling them back towards the ground once again. The buildings did not fight back against this change. With nothing there to stop them, the concrete jungles and metallic superstructures finally were free to become one with the world it was torn away from. The city was finally being destroyed by one not of evil, but of peaceful change. Zeroy sits upright again. A tear rolls down his vacant face. Silence, utter silence, as it has been for the past nearly 5,000 years. The Zephian race becomes forgotten as the evidence of their existence fades away. The civilization has completely returned to the dirt it was built upon. Despite it all, Zeroy still sat and stared. The horizon was ever changing, even after nearly 5,000 years. As with Zero's thoughts, they were static, never changing once. Zero only thought of one thing: himself. He had almost forgotten all about his divine state until recently, for all that filled his mind was the regret of his life. He has accomplished everything he could have ever wished for, yet he felt more empty than he has ever felt. Voldir, the god of Treq before him, the first god killed by his desire for power. Was his death worth it? Whether Voldir lived or died didn't matter to Zero, but it did for the Cradons he served. In that moment, Zero chose to kill Voldir. He chose to become more powerful. But why? Why did he want power if it would have just resulted in this? Zero thought more to himself. Becoming powerful meant everything to him. He took away things that mattered most from countless civilizations for his own benefit. Entire worlds were shattered in order for Zero to reach the pinnacle of existence he desired so much. It was all for power. Power that would allow him to see what it is truly like to have an absolutely pointless existence, to torture others in order to give himself the worst torture imaginable. It struck him. Zero wanted to become the most powerful being because it made him feel strong. But it wasn't the strength that made him feel content, it was the struggle for it. The struggle to achieve more is what made him feel so alive, like he had a purpose. Zero now understood what it was like to be undefeatable and all-controlling. He had no struggle anymore, no way to become more powerful, and thus no purpose. Another tear fell from his empty eye. Zero asked himself the same question once more. Voldir, the god of Treq before him. The murder that began Zero's horrible journey to become the most powerful being. Was his death worth it? Was taking the life of one loved by so many worth it to attain the immense power Zero held now? He looked down at his hands, sobbing silently. The tears rolled down his face, one by one falling onto his palms. He angrily clenched his fist, smashing it into the ground beside him. The grip of his hand slowly loosened as more tears kept falling down. He could do absolutely anything, but nothing could ever cleanse the regrets of his life.